Happy not to be sitting on that side.
So you're like broadcasting?
Yeah, live streaming. It's on our city's website, our city's YouTube channel. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So this one is for the candidates.
Let's put it here first.
Yeah.
I see you taking a video.
Yeah.
You should be taking a video.
Yeah, it's gonna be broadcasted on the RCD YouTube channel. So yeah, it will be a live stream, yes, and then it will be it on the video on demand. Yes, it will be available on that site.
Thanks.
Want some butter?
Thank you, thank you.
Take these in the back. Give them nice real glasses.
Out on the track.
My shoe is good, sound is nice.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. guys are recording too? Oh, it's a good formula. Yeah, we're live streaming this onto our YouTube channel. So you can always go on to our YouTube channel.
You're live streaming, right?
Yeah, right here. Yeah, I'm right here. This is the streaming station.
Okay.
You know anything extra you need? Flour? Cards?
I'm gonna start reading through the
Yeah,
questions.
take your time to settle down.
Yeah, I think
Let me test the mic.
Valerie's on the left.
some more questions.
佢想可能有個 direct feed 去咯，不過我由佢 set up 個咪。
你冇另一個收嚟，
係啊
你 M
，that's yeah that's it。
你嘅你冇另一
Okay. do they have up there?
They have a total of 5 microphones.
Okay, good. So they could figure out themselves how to grab a mic. Okay.
And this is yours. Do you want to do a quick mic check first?
Testing. Okay. And I'll turn it off in between.
Yeah, not likely in the net.
Hey Nancy, how you doing?
Hi.
How's it going?
Yeah.
Good.
Live streaming.
Okay.
Need a
I need a chair. Well, I don't know.
this one by Valorant, or you can grab one from there.
Okay. Oh, it's there. Ah, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep, that's the, yeah, so we'll keep track of how many questions they've got.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
That works?
Yeah.
Do you have
He's
a,
gonna do that.
yeah, she let me have, but
Yeah. Yeah. So we can get everybody. Yeah, okay.
where do you want me or
Dee's sitting here, because she and I are gonna,
do you?
yeah.
Whatever you like. Oh, is she?
She's writing as we go. Yes. No, I think he said. Dude, yeah. You kind of have that.
Got a lot of questions to sort out.
Oh,
It's a
this
big
is
stack.
the Israeli gasoline again. Maybe a repeat. Thank you.
See you. Maria,
Hi, Carm.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
See you. Thank you for this.
We're getting more and more questions.
Is it on? No. But the stream is on.
Yes. Here, if you want to start looking up right there, there's a. I did. So she just my son just started to order child care, food security, and then it's a quick and this is. You want to start looking at those things? Yeah, that's okay. I make sure my phone is I'm not going to mark Zach Siegel. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Hopefully the audience can see, but I think they can now. Yeah. Oh, it's a very long question. think a lot of them are. Why don't we start? Yeah. Yes. Why don't we start with the two? This one's very specific. Why don't we start with one else? Yeah. So if we, when we go to the open, we want to massage.
Hello, everyone. Oh, whoa, it really works. My name is Dee Whalen. I'd like to welcome you all on this sunny evening. Thanks for taking time out to come to this All Candidates meeting. It is co-hosted by the Richmond Poverty Reduction Coalition, Richmond Center for Disability, and the Jewish Seniors Alliance. We're happy that you're all here, and thank you. And thank you for all the candidates for coming. We have two ridings here in Richmond. One is called, and they're new, one is called Richmond Center Marpole, and the other one is called Richmond East Steveston. So I'm going to hand the mic over to our moderator, Maria Rantanen from Richmond News, and then we'll get moving. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve, for opening. I'm Maria Rantanen with the Richmond News. I also want to welcome you here. I'd also, I need to read. And I'd also like to say that we are grateful to hold this all candidates meeting and our federal election on the traditional lands of the Hunkaminam language group. Before I introduce the candidates, I just want to say that luckily the Richmond Sockeyes are out of their season has ended, so we did not need to move the time of this meeting for our own candidates, unlike some other candidates. So, just quickly, get my glasses back on. It's wonderful when your eyes get old. Just to introduce our candidates, we were expecting Chakao, so hopefully he's coming. He might be just looking for parking, so we're the Conservative Party. We have David Wang with the People's Party, Canada. Martin Lee, thank you, and NDP, right? Should know that off by heart. Michael Sisler with the Green Party. Wilson Meow with the Liberal Party. And these are the candidates for Richmond Center Marpole. And then the candidates for Richmond East Steveston, Kiefer Pellick with the NDP, Parm Baines with the Liberal Party, Stephen G. with the Green Party, and Zach Siegel gave his regrets. He had another event, he couldn't come. So, we have some just basic rules, and I'd just like to remind the audience that we don't want any heckling or rude noises, so just polite, even if you disagree with the candidates, let's keep the debate civil, and that's about all I have to say for that. I think everybody understands. And then just to say we are timing the questions tonight, so the candidates have gotten all the rules in advance, and they'll be given 1 minute to introduce themselves, and then 2 minutes for our questions. If we ask for a rebuttal, we'll give them 1 minute to rebut, and that will be up to us to decide if a rebuttal is needed. And you've been explained the rules of when you have to stop talking. We have cards that will be flashed and when your time is up. So please respect those timelines. We have a lot of questions. We've gotten a lot submitted tonight, and that's great. We really thank you for that. So with no further ado, I'm going to sit down after a while just because I'm going through the questions, so I apologize in advance for having my back to you. We'll start with introductions. So you have 1 minute to introduce yourself, and we'll go left to right. So we'll start with David Wang with the People's Party.
Can everybody hear me? So, should I stand up?
If you like.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming out today to listen to us. My name is David Wang. I'm your candidate for Richmond Centre Marpole for the People's Party of Canada. Now, the People's Party of Canada, we're a young party. I'm out there knocking on doors, talking to people, and a lot of people say, wait, who are you guys? And I say, well, we're a small party, but we're growing dramatically. We got 200,000 votes in 2019 when we first started. We got 850,000 votes in 2021, so we saw a dramatic increase in our turnout. And this year we're hoping to do even better. Our party is the party that is willing to say what the other parties will not. We are a free market, libertarian, traditional Canadian values party, and we believe we tap into what Canadians genuinely want. We want to make sure that the government is small. Thank you very much for your time. I'll have more to say later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Hi guys, my name is Martin Lee. I'm just going to sit down. First of all, I'm going to do land acknowledgement. I want to be gratefully acknowledged that we're on the Musqueam Nation here. I just want to do a self-introduction. My name is Martin Lee. That truly means a lot here tonight to be running as your NDP candidate, the community where I grew up. I went to school here. I worked my first job. In fact, this building right here is where I worked my first job. I was a lifeguard here in City of Richmond for the past 10 years and eventually became supervisor for this pool here. Yes, that's kind of my background. I started with the City of Richmond. My family came to Canada with a lot of hope, not much else. Like many others, we worked hard. Late nights, weekends, doing what it took to build a stable life. We didn't have wealth or connections, but we had each other and we had this community like you. That's why I care so deeply about fairness and making sure no one gets left behind. I know what it's like to worry about rent, and I will go for detail into my other stuff. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, I'm Michael Sisler with the Green Party, and I'm primarily here to surprise you, to introduce to you the Green Party and how tough we actually are and prepared for the external forces that are threatening us, calling for things like ammunition surplus and minerals in a governmental surplus to be prepared for the future, and protecting our sovereignty, not just the environment, as well as increasing your income and increasing taxes on the wealthy and greedy corporations that are polluting our air. What's more, we are probably facing the biggest crises we ever had with our neighbors to the south, and any protection that we've had in our lifetime, I mean, even some of the older ones, it's probably unrecognized yet. So we're going to surprise you how prepared we are to take on these external armies that are coming for us if they do. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Great to see all of you here tonight, and thank you for hosting. My name is Wilson Miao. I'm running to be re-elected as your Member of Parliament for Richmond Centre Marpole. Over the last 3 or so years, I had the privilege to meet many of you in this room today, and I think there's much more needed we can do in our community, because I feel when I got elected, our voices are not really being heard in Ottawa because we're so far out west. And I have the privilege of working with Palm Bains together to bring in a lot of federal investment to the City of Richmond. In fact, over 500 million, and this is a significant number that has not been seen in the past. So I hope to continue my work and also have the trust and your support to be re-elected and serve in this community that I grew up in. Thank you very much for your time.
Hi there, my name is Kiefer Pellick. I just wanted to say thank you, Maria, for the land acknowledgement. All of the work that we do on the federal level is deeply seated in colonialism, and it's important that we center that in the work that we do. My name is Kiefer. I'm the NDP candidate for Richmond East Houston. I was born and raised here, and I am so proud to be able to raise my son here now. I've worked for the last 7 years with the provincial government, helping to connect people with services and help advocate for change in our community. I know that this is an incredible place to raise our kids, But stresses like affordability, the affordable housing crisis are making more families have to leave our community. That's one of the biggest things that I will be advocating for in this election so that we can make sure that this is a welcoming community for new generations to come. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today, and I want to thank, of course, all of the host moderators and everybody that's made this day an important one. And thank you. You're all here because you care about this city, and just like us, everyone here cares about this city. And my pathway into politics began through a grassroots organizations working for at-risk youth, and that took me into working for the provincial government. I grew up here, and I went to Kingswood Elementary School, R.C. Palmer, Richmond High. So I'm truly honored for the last 4 years to be able to serve the city that raised me. And I've been focusing, like Wilson said, on making things better for our community here on the issues that matter around affordability, housing, and we were able to deliver a number of agreements with working closely with all levels of government, City of Richmond and the provincial government, to deliver affordable projects that have already been done. And I want to build on a lot of the foundational investments made, and we'll continue that work. Thank you.
Hello, guys.
Turn it on.
Hello guys, my name is Stephen G. I am running for the Green Party. Thank you guys for coming out, and a lot of respect for all of the candidates that have put their name in the box. So I think I've seen lots of change in both Vancouver and Richmond, and we've got a lot of things that we can do, and there's a lot of things to fix. So I think for this election, it's less about what we believe, but more about what you believe, and us representing your voice in the federal government.
Thank you for those introductions. And so tonight's theme is holding candidates accountable on social justice issues. And so the candidates, we have a theme question, and they're invited to share their viewpoints regarding affordable housing and homelessness, food accessibility, transportation, transit, health and social services, income security, childcare, and more. And we will have specific questions later, but the theme question for tonight, and you will all have 2 minutes to answer it. And we can maybe start on the right this time and go backwards. Sorry, not backwards, the other direction. So the theme question is, taking into account all these issues that I just mentioned around social justice on the federal stage, what will your actions be to increase accessibility and affordability? And you can expand on one of those topics or many of them as you like.
So I think this is a very good question, because this is what we as average Canadians face on our day-to-day life. We're looking at inflation, we're looking at high crime, we're looking at unaffordable housing, but at the same time, we're having housing price drops. So both parties are not doing great. None of us are doing great. So we look at these things as different issues, but I would like to say that these are not separate issues. These are all part of one single issue, and that is the decline of Canadian purchasing power for the regular Canadians. We have not seen our wages increase that much, but we have seen the cost of living explode over the past 20, 30 years. And this is possible to fix. So I want to let everyone know that this is possible to fix, but it's very, very hard. It requires cooperation from all three levels of government. And I think that's something that we should be working towards.
Yeah, I'll just build a little bit on what Stephen just said at the end. Cooperation from all levels of government is extremely important. When we look at combating poverty, The federal government, for example, will put forward funding, but it needs to get to service providers. It has to go through the provinces, and it's extremely important that we get agreements done where they're focused on the areas that matter. So for example, if we look at the Municipal Accelerator Fund or the Rapid Housing Initiative, we were able to build housing for women and women with children within 18 months. And that was a rapid housing initiative because the need was there. But there's more to do. There's an interim housing assistance program, and I've worked with Dee and others in the community to look at those applications need to come from the city, and we're willing to advocate for those dollars to bring them here, and we're getting that also through the Accelerator Fund agreement, which focuses on gentle density is something that I was really passionate about. I know Kiefer mentioned friends leaving the city because it was too expensive to live here. And that agreement allows for us to build more on the land that we have. We saw big home properties get torn down and then having bigger ones be built on them. Instead, we need to look at doing more on those duplexes, fourplexes, or sixplexes based on the transit needs that we have also in the city. So I have 30 seconds, so I can add a little bit on that. Again, it needs to be a lot more complex than just saying we need this one program to fix everything. We need everything. We need transit. We need the ability to provide affordable funding, affordable housing, do more to create housing options, because we do not have enough housing options. So those are all in our building housing plan, and the federal government previously for years was not involved in the housing, but we have been rapidly doing that now. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Stephen said. I think it's very true that all these issues are very connected when we talk about affordability and accessibility and welcoming communities and housing and the cost of food. So there's a lot that we can do right away to help make sure that we're supporting everyone in our community, regardless of your income bracket or your ability. And some of those things are GST freeze right away on essential goods. Things like food, things like home heating, things like diapers or clothing for your children. And this is something that the Liberals actually brought in, which is fantastic, and I love that, and thank you so much. But it ended in February. So if you elect New Democrats, we will push to make sure that that is a permanent fixture so that we're supporting people in this time of unaffordability. Another really good example, again, great work bringing in dental care and pharmacare. We were able to do that because we elected enough New Democrats to push the Liberals on that. That makes it so that seniors, so that people on disability, so that people on low income can afford things like dental care, can afford their medication without having to pick between that and do they have enough food on the table? Are they able to feed their kids? So by providing those services, we are going to be helping to lift everybody up. And just while I have a little bit of time left, these programs are so vital. These are the things that make Canada who we are. They're the things that lift us all up and the things that we're proud of. And as we see threats coming in from the States, these are the things that we need to be defending. We cannot be cutting these services. We cannot be cutting funding for these things like some other people who are not here would like us to do. So we have to make sure that we are funding those services. Thank you.
But before I start sharing my thoughts about this topic, it's really great to see a room full of people engaging with us. And the purpose of me back in 2021 wanting to come out and run is because we are really underheard from the federal level. And when I'm at the door, many people will ask, what do you do for me, right? Because a lot of time, we are not a government that will push around and say, this is not my jurisdiction. And that's why over the years, we were able to bring a lot of attention. We were able to bring a lot of the minister coming over here to Richmond to understand where our priorities, our needs are. Because Canada is so big. And sometimes people who live in the East Coast might think Richmond will be part of Richmond Hill. And that's something that really struggled for me because we are the gateway to the Pacific. And we have a very great community out here that's advocating for a lot of social programs for our community. But in order to make that work, we must work together, just like what Parm has mentioned and all the other candidates have mentioned. It's about listening to each and every one of you to understand where our priorities are so that we can fight for you by bringing this voice to Ottawa and making sure that we get the attention we need in our community. And as many as you know, also, this time around with this election, we have a boundary redistribution in my riding of Richmond Centre and Marple. And that's important because each of us might live in a different community, but there are very uniqueness to each of the community that we represent. And how do we understand it from the ground level and working with all three levels of government, bringing in the investment, bringing in the support. It's also very critical towards the area of affordable housing, TransLink, and also like childcare and daycare and senior care. So happy to share more when I have more time. Thank you.
Following on that, yes, all of these problems are related. So starting with the housing, the Green Party proposes to get all speculation on housing, corporate flipping, tax breaks for real estate investment trusts, all of these things that make the rich richer and your rent and mortgages get higher, they need to be removed. Absolutely. That's one goal of the Green Party. As well, guaranteed livable income is going to be brought forth by the Green Party. And taxing the wealthy, progressive wealth tax. The richer you are, the more you have to pay. All right, not just a cutoff at something, it's progressive, up to infinity. All right, we're going to close these tax holes, or tax loopholes, and get the money back into services that you need. Services like home health care, we want to increase the wage for home health care workers. Recruit doctors from afar. Get the doctors that have immigrated here but can't get their licenses. We need to get that medical attention up so your medical needs can be met at a lower cost and a more rapid pace. As well as bringing in funding for all NGOs and things where people have to depend on to survive. We believe in that. The Green Party believes in taking care of the little guy. And for too long, corporate greed has taken over this country. We want to return to federal housing like we had 30 years ago. Do you remember that? There was a lot more federal, and then 2 consecutive prime ministers, if you will, one conservative, one liberal, they both reduced that. And now we need more co-op housing. We want to build that. A nationwide electrical infrastructure so we can increase our energy self-sufficiency and not rely on external countries and imports and so forth. Even interprovincially, our electric grid kind of segmented here, isolated there, none up north. We need to bring that in so everybody can cook their food at a reasonable price. Most of all, we need to protect all that we have. Thank you.
Yes, for me, social justice means making sure no one's left behind, especially in a place like Richmond Centre Marple, where I've grown up, lived most of my life. And I've seen firsthand how affordability challenges impact our neighbors, like yourselves. Seniors choosing between medication and groceries. Young families squeezed out of their communities, and newcomers struggling to find their footing. And I have friends forced to move out of Richmond due to the cost of housing. And when we talk about housing, we need more than just market-based solutions. I will fight for real affordable housing, where co-op housing rent geared to income homes and public housing. So people could actually live where they work and raise their families, like yourselves here in the audience today. And I have met people on the doorsteps when I went door knocking. People who skip dental visits, split medications, doses, because they can't afford full prescriptions. That's not acceptable in a country as wealthy as Canada. As someone who has been part of our public system here, I know we need to finish work the NDP started, such as expanded dental care, bringing universal pharmacare, and protect healthcare. And I've worked with youth adults who live with disabilities and the barrier they face in transportation, employment, and daily lives are unacceptable. Yes, as I discussed previously, I've worked hourly jobs here, right here at Mineral Center of Active Living. So I've seen how hard it is to get ahead when wages doesn't keep up with the costs of living. And by conclusion, I want to say, I'm not a career politician. I mean, someone here who grew up here, who knows our community and struggles, who's really here to fight for you. And Richmond Center Marple deserve a voice to understand what working people are going through and who will deliver real action on affordability and accessibility. Thank you so much for your time. I see you standing there. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. The People's Party of Canada, again, our role in federal politics is to be the voice that you guys will not hear from the other parties. What I hear from my esteemed colleagues is more of the same that we've been seeing in Canada now for years and years, and it's just resulted in our country becoming poorer and poorer and poorer. Again, services are wonderful. We all want more services, more stuff. That sounds great. The thing is, you have to pay for stuff, right? You need a buoyant, vibrant economy to pay for services. Now, I know that the NDP celebrate that dental care has been introduced and there's been daycare services are provided. That's wonderful. But currently, the Canadian dollar is 68 cents to the US dollar and probably likely to fall. Currently, our national debt is $1.2 trillion. We're at parity, debt to GDP parity. That means that the amount of money that we make as a country actually is the amount of our debt of our country. We're adding $62 billion a year in deficits. The People's Party of Canada is saying something bold. You won't hear this from the other parties. We'll say it. We can balance the budget in 1 year. Balancing the budget is a good thing. If we actually get budget surpluses, then we can cut your taxes without actually having to borrow money. The other parties will say, yeah, we'll find ways to cut taxes. Sure. Then where's the money going to come from? Oh, I know. We'll just borrow more money. Oh, wow. That's going to result in our Canadian dollar getting weaker and weaker. You're going to go to the grocery store, price will go higher. Oh, I know, we'll just tell those evil grocery stores to stop charging so much. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. It didn't work in communist China. It didn't work in communist Soviet Union. They don't work. Russia and China became wealthy when they embraced capitalist principles. Capitalist free market principles are what make a country wealthy. The People's Party of Canada, we are a free market dedicated party. If you want real change, you need to embrace a different way of doing things. All the other parties are talking about give you stuff, give you stuff, give you stuff, but they don't talk about how you're going to have to pay for it. So if you elect the Liberals and the NDP again, you'll get more of the same. Vote PPC, vote for something different. Thank you.
Thank you. Just so the audience knows, they have a blue sign when they have 30 seconds, a red sign when they're going to stop, and then the bell goes. So, and that's often because they're distracted and don't see the signs, but that's what the bell is. It's ringing back here. It's the famous Richmond News bell. So our first question that we prepared, specific question, is going to be directed at Wilson Miao. And our first topic is housing and affordable housing. So there is a lot of talk about helping Canadians afford to buy their own home. But what about people who rent and will never own a home? People in Richmond cannot find secure long-term rental homes that they can afford, let alone save enough to buy a home. So what actions will you take to ensure the federal government encourages the building, renovating, and subsidizing of non-market housing in Richmond with no net loss?
Well, thank you very much for that question. That's actually a very important question in our community. And before my career into politics, I was in the real estate sector. So I know very well how hard it is for young people to join the housing market and even to buy their first home. And the Liberal government has been very committed to provide programs to support first-time home buyers to purchase a new home. And under our Prime Minister Mark Carney, he had promised that we will make sure that first-time home buyer will waive their GST on new purchase under $1 million. At the same time, for a first-time home buyer, it's not just about the down payment, which you can actually save through the register home buying savings account. It's a tax-free account to support young people. And also at the same time, it's providing a longer term amortization with our mortgage reform. So offering, instead of 25 years, a 30-year amortization to support our young buyers. But at the same time, I understand that it's very difficult for people to rent because of the shortage of supply, which causes a higher cost in our community to even rent a place. Can you imagine one bedroom in Richmond starting at 1,800? That's very challenging for a lot of new young startup families. And that's why we are, as Liberal government, we are going to come back and build more homes. And our goal is to build about 500,000 homes each year across the nation to fill in the supply. But at the same time, in the local community level, we have a lot of those very aged and outdated co-op housing community, which we can also integrate and build more densified housing to support that. And one example, which is not in Richmond, but in Marpole, there used to be a 54-unit townhouse, but now incorporated a 125-unit condominium for market rental. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a question from the floor actually about housing, and it's for Kiefer. So the question being, and it's asking affordable housing as well, so they're saying, where will the money to support affordable housing as well as improving healthcare come from? Would an NDP government raise taxes to pay for these necessities?
I think this is a really good question because anything that we want to do, we do have to pay for, and there is only one purse. It comes from taxpayers. What we are recommending is a tax change that actually decreases taxes on the lower spectrum of earners and raises it on the highest bracket of earners. That way we can help pay and lift everybody up. But I do just want to talk about affordable housing while we're on this. Wilson mentioned really good points about rent and how rent is rising in our city. And a really good kind of measure of that, I moved out from my childhood home about 10 years ago when the Liberals were first elected. And the rent for a 2-bedroom at that point was $1,250. That's how much I paid. And it is now double that to rent a 2-bedroom in our city. People who are just leaving their homes for the first time can't afford that. So one thing that we can do that doesn't raise taxes on anyone, but does help preserve our affordable rental stock is banning corporations from buying up existing rental stock buildings and raising the rents on those. That doesn't bar them from building new housing, and we would actually encourage the building of new housing. We want to build 3 million new units by 2030, but it does help us protect the existing rental stock that we already have in our city that is so crucially needed.
Thank you. The next question is for Stephen G. So this is also on housing. So housing affordability, as we all know, is a growing challenge in Richmond. Rising costs and a lack of available affordable housing have put significant pressure on residents. Furthermore, homelessness persists due to a combination of economic and social factors. So how can the federal government address the rising cost of housing and provide effective support for individuals experiencing homelessness?
That's a very good question, and a lot has been said by the other candidates, but I think this is a very complex issue because we can't actually just fix it by building a ton more homes indiscriminately, because right now we already have a ton of pre-construction condos that are empty. People have bought it and they're losing a lot of money on it, and we're seeing a lot of real estate developers stop developing, not because the government doesn't want them to build, but because they're losing money. So if we continue down this path, the real estate developers are going to quit, and we're not going to get more housing. So, and so what I think the solution is we don't want to crash the market, but instead we want to raise the income of Canadians. And also, this ties into the way we tax ourselves. So the tax brackets have barely changed over the last 20, 30 years, but what is required to live has increased significantly. So Right now, just to be considered middle class, you're actually already in the top tax bracket. That was not the case 20, 30 years ago. So we need fundamental systematic changes to actually help everyday Canadians get through this.
And we have just one more question on homelessness, and this is for David Wang. So as we've all heard, housing is an issue, housing affordability is an issue. So I'm wondering what additional measures would, like a PPC government, if you were at some point to form a government, ensure affordable housing and eliminate chronic homelessness?
First, I just wanted to say that I liked Stephen's answer. He sounded just like a People's Party of Canada candidate, and that was really great. We don't want to scare away builders, right, with overregulation, with hamstringing them. We actually want to encourage them to build more. Stephen's right. The solution is to increase the cost of living for all Canadians. It's easier said than done, but again, what we need to do is we need to strengthen the Canadian economy, strengthen the Canadian dollar, bring back your purchasing power. Now, for the homeless, social programs take money, and you can't just, as my NDP colleague would say, just find a way to tax the wealthy. If you just overtly tax the wealthy, they will find ways to hide money. They're very good at making money. They're very good at hiding money. That is not the solution. The solution is for government to be leaner and more efficient. Government programs take money, but you've got to make an efficient government first. So what we propose is bringing the corporate income tax down. We propose bringing your personal income tax down, and doing so again with doing dramatic cuts to spending. So dramatic cut to foreign aid, right? We would cut foreign aid. We would cut the money to the war in Ukraine. I know this isn't like it's tied to homelessness, but it is. For us to be able to afford the social programs that will help the homeless, we need to be able to pay for them, and a government will only be able to pay for them if they are efficiently run. So again, I'm going to put these points in there. We'll cut foreign aid. We will cut the money to the war in Ukraine so Ukrainians can kill each other, right? We will cut the corporate subsidies. You would think the PPC, you guys are free market. You guys love big corporations. No. We want to cut all corporate subsidies and the subsidies to the CBC as well. Again, we can cut $60 billion in 1 year. It's in our platform. Read it. Then with those surpluses, then we'll have more than enough money to do tax refunds and take care of the homeless. And again, the homeless shouldn't be homeless, right? If we have a strong economy, we will be able to find excellent jobs for them. The cost of living will come down, right? Builders will be able to build more, we'll attract more investment. That's the solution, the free market. Thank you.
So the next question is for Parm, so we're going to move from housing, and I have a question on childcare. So the federal government has introduced a national childcare plan to make childcare more affordable and accessible. However, implementation varies across provinces and demand still exceeds supply in many areas. So how can the federal government ensure the success of the national childcare plan and address ongoing challenges in accessibility?
I think ultimately you answered that within the question. If you look at working with other provinces, we need to get to agreements with the provinces. So I think British Columbia is one great example. It was the first one that we achieved a $10 a day daycare program agreement with, and we've seen an amazing demand for it. And you know what, I listened to some of the answers from the other members here, and they look at these things are not, you know, handouts. These are productivity measures. They're solutions to issues that we have across Canada. And it's not about, you know, we're just looking at creating a program to just keep dishing out money. We have to find savings. We look within our government, and if you look at something I'll talk about right away that Mark Carney did in his first 9 days, he introduced a measure where he said we would look at 2 different ways to operate our budget. We have to separate our capital spending, which we need to continue because we have to keep investing in this country. But then you look at your government operational spending, and we need to find savings there. And I talked about this in 2021. Right when I was elected, I put a motion forward to look at departmental spending and make sure that we can maintain the services while trimming the fat, which is commonly a used term for that. So we need to go into our buildings and look at what offices are not being used. We need to amalgamate different departments and make sure that we can find those savings there and can continue to find these agreements with every province and other levels of government to implement these solutions. And they're not handouts. They are programs that Canadians need and they deserve because it's their money that we're using. So thank you.
The next question is for Michael, and it's on climate change. So climate change is a national emergency that demands ambitious nationwide action. Canada needs to significantly reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, protect our natural resources and ecosystems, and mitigate the devastating impacts that climate change has on communities. So how would your party address the needs of communities, particularly Indigenous communities, that are adversely affected by environmental degradation and climate change, including wildfires and flooding, which we've seen here in BC?
First off would be to immediately stop the pollution that causes certain climate changes, especially the subsidies to big gas and oil. And this kind of ties in with where we're going to get the money. I've heard different figures between 30 billion and 70 billion that we are subsidizing the big oil and gas companies with. We need to take that money and invest in a green future. Same jobs, same energy, only better air. So that's one way, is immediately get our dependencies on fossil fuels in order. Now, going up north, they don't have options for electricity yet. So we are proposing a nationwide electric grid. First time ever it's been done in Canada. All green, supporting good jobs, giving energy to those who need it, and an entire infrastructure that is Canadian-based and Canadian-wide. As well, other infrastructures, internet and so forth, will be incorporated into that. We need to reduce our dependencies on globalization. You know, everything that comes from China, back and forth, you all heard about the tariff, now this part comes here, and there, and 27. Globalization causes pollution. Those ships use gas and oil and fuel, that is, to come across, and increasing the emissions into the air we breathe. Lowering our plastics. You know, we now have airborne plastics, microplastics in the air that are getting into our lungs, and we don't know how it's going to affect our health. All of these things we need to cut our dependency on immediately. And we've just published, the Green Party that is, just published their platform this morning. 124 pages. The first platform that's been published by any party, I'm proud to say. So we're going to get the money. We're going to reduce emissions immediately. And we're going to provide jobs and economic strength with these initiatives. Thank you.
The next question is for Martin. Excuse me. And it's on food security. So access to affordable and nutritious food remains a concern for low-income individuals and families. So what measures can be taken to improve food accessibility and ensure that everyone in Richmond has access to nutritious meals?
Yes, thank you for the question. In a country as wealthy as Canada, no one should go hungry. Yet, as many you know here at Richmond Centre Marpole, I've spoken with many families on their doorsteps who regularly visit food banks. It's seniors who skip meals, and parents who worry about whether they will have enough food for the kids in the school. And we need action to bring down the cost of groceries. That means holding grocery chains accountable for price gouging and bringing price caps on essentials. It also means removing GST from basic necessities like groceries and home heating. But food accessibility isn't just about cost. It's about access. We need to support community food programs, protect farmland, and invest in local food systems that are resilient and affordable. Everyone deserves healthy, fresh, and culturally appropriate food, and no matter their income or where they live. Thank you.
And the topic of food banks came up right there briefly. So the next question is for Kiefer, and specifically, so by all standards, Canada is a very wealthy country, yet in Richmond, 4,500 unique households depend on our food bank. Numbers of senior clients are rising, and 23% of Richmond Food Bank clients are children. There is even an evening distribution for working people. So what steps and commitment will you and your party make to reduce the need on food banks? And I think that was touched on already a bit.
Yeah, I think I've already mentioned a couple of these things, but all of the issues around affordability really are tied together: housing, the cost of food, the cost of medication, and healthcare. So bringing in dental care, bringing in pharmacare are ways that we can help alleviate some of the pressure on some of the most targeted folks. Other things we can do around housing is building the housing that we need, using federal and public land to help build purpose-built public housing to help alleviate some of that cost, building affordable housing that has specific purposes for seniors or for people with disabilities to help with some of those issues as well. I think elections are about choices and elections are about priorities. And one thing I would love to say is one thing that the Liberal government did, which was an interesting choice, was give millions of dollars to Loblaws and Costco to help retrofit all of their refrigerators. And this is not a terrible environmental policy, but it doesn't help to bring down the cost of food. One of the first jobs that I ever had in Richmond was actually at a local produce market that got its produce from local farms here in Richmond. That subsidy did not help that local business, help support those local farmers and help support local people who buy the food. So if we can help shift that subsidy towards more local businesses, if we can help bring down the cost, like my colleague said, with capping the cost of groceries, if we can help bring off the GST on essential goods like food and heating and children's clothing, that's another way that we can immediately bring down the cost for people and support them right away in their pocketbooks. Thank you.
I have a personal follow-up, but I'll ask Kiefer later because I love the farming aspect of Richmond, but I'll leave that for later. We're going to move on to human rights. And Parm Baines, I have a question for you. And the first two are both towards the Liberals just because given their record in government. So before the election was called, the new cabinet appointed by Prime Minister Mark Carney did not include a dedicated minister for women and gender equality. This position has existed in some form or another since 1971. So do you support there being a dedicated minister for women and gender equality in cabinet?
Yes, I think if you look at what Mark Carney has done right now in the lead up to this election, it was to create a caretaker government. So this is not the cabinet that will be going into the next election. However, if you look at the Minister of Health, for example, and others that are in cabinet right now, there's a strong representation of very strong, capable women that have been making decisions for the last number of years. And if you look at any given ministry, it has several different departments that have a direct focus on the issues that matter. And the Liberal government for a long time has been steadfastly supporting women and women's rights, women's right to choose. And we've had strong women in, deputy prime minister of this country is a woman. So I think what we need to really focus on are the issues and how they are dealt with. And I mean, if we look at just creating titles for the sake of titles, I think we need to really focus on the work that's being done, where the dedicated work is. So we are, as a Liberal Party, it's very, very well known that not only domestically, but internationally, the amount of support that we've given for women and given them prominence in prominent roles and decision-making roles. So I don't think there's any question that the Liberal government or the Liberal Party has any issues around not supporting women.
And for Wilson, the federal government is directly or jointly accountable for 76 of the 94 truth, and Reconciliation Commission of Canada's calls to action. So conflicting reports say only 11 to 17 of these recommendations are complete. What specific actions will your party take to implement all 94 recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission?
Thank you for that question. And this is a very important question, as you know, we all live in a country that was originated by the First Nation. And you know, the Liberal government has taken steps on carrying out reconciliation effort. And locally, just a couple months ago, we were able to sign on an agreement with the Musqueam Nation and also with the YVR in some of the revenue sharing, and also allowing them to govern their own First Nation. And I understand there's still more works to be done, and that's why it's important for us to continue having open dialogue with the Aboriginal, with the First Nation across our nation, to understand in which area that we can recognize their effort in contributing to Canada. And I think it's also important for us to understand that any projects or any things we do in the coming future also consult with the Indigenous community, because sometimes when I'm speaking to the First Nation or Musqueam First Nation, they feel that there's a lot of time their voice are not being heard. And I think even though one of our Liberal candidate who is not part of this riding, who is running for Vancouver Quadra from the Musqueam Nation, I think this is also a great start to include Musqueam people to take part in this discussion and really carrying out more stronger effort in reconciliation. Thank you.
And the next question is for David Wang. So the right to strike is a fundamental right that empowers workers to negotiate fair wages, benefits, and safe working conditions. But this right is under constant attack, firstly through back-to-work legislation, and more recently using Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code. The Minister of Labour, Stephen McKinnon, has invoked Section 107 3 times in the past 2 years to end legal strikes, including rail workers, dock workers, and postal workers. So do you support free and fair collective bargaining and the right to strike without government interference?
That's an interesting question. The People's Party of Canada, again, we're a party that believes very much, again, in the principles of the free market. I know I keep repeating that point. I just wanted to actually address a point, if I may pivot for a moment, please, into women. The People's Party of Canada is the party that believes very much in supporting women. I just want to pivot to that point. And we are the only party that publicly opposes SOGI. I know that a lot of people here might support it, but I want you guys to be here honestly what the People's Party stands for. And we support women's rights in sports. We do not agree with men participating in women's sports. We think that in classes in school. I'll just go into that question now, actually, for the right to strike. When it comes to the right to strike, it's an important given right, but when federal workers provide essential services for Canadians, those services have to be delivered. So striking to a point is important, but again, if you do sign a contract to be a worker in Canada, you do need to actually be able to go back to work at a reasonable amount of time. So again, I do not know the fine details. I would support workers' rights to strike. That is an important right for all Canadians, but I do believe that at a certain point, a responsible government does need to insist that workers go back to work and serve Canadians, because that's the role they take on when they take on that job. And I want to put in another point, please. We are talking a lot about spending a lot of money. I've actually if I became an MP, I would introduce a fantastic tool for all Canadians to utilize. It's called My Tax Money Canada. It would be a smartphone app that would utilize the resources of the Parliamentary Budget Office and other reporting agencies in Canada, which would show you exactly how your money is being spent. So it's wonderful that we can talk about delivering all these great services that you will get and finding ways to make housing more affordable with more government spending, but you need to look into that and see it for yourself. So I hope that you will actually ask the same amount of accountability you get from your bank or from your credit card, you ask it from your government. So no matter who you elect, I strongly encourage you to ask for an app that will give you transparency on spending. Thank you.
If we could try to stick to the topic at hand, please, appreciate it. The next question is for Stephen. So Canada ratified in 2010 the commitment of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities to an adequate standard of living for themselves and their families, including adequate food, clothing, and housing, and to the continuous improvement of living conditions. What changes would you put forward to recognize the rights of persons with disabilities to adhere to the commitment of the United Nations Convention?
So I think this is a very important topic because I just saw in one of the emails that I've gotten from the constituents that I think it's something that like 15 to 20% of adults over the age of 50 are living with disabilities in Canada. So even if we're not disabled, it's very likely that one of our family's members are or will be. So I think we need to think about the ways to improve their standard of living and giving them adequate care. Now we are strained in terms of our healthcare. Many of us know it's tough to find family doctors. It's tough to get treatment in a timely manner. These are very difficult questions, and I'm not an expert at them, but I want to hear more about this. I want to learn more about this. So if you guys know more about this, please educate me. And I think we need to raise awareness and let the community discuss these issues more and come to a consensus. And then we can bring that consensus to the federal government.
Thank you. And Martin, we have a question for you. So gender-based violence is an epidemic in Canada, in homes, on campuses, on streets and workplaces, in politics even. Shelters and crisis services need more reliable funding. Strict gun control must be enforced, and the murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls inquiry calls for justice must be implemented. Will your party implement a national action plan on gender-based violence? And if so, what will it contain?
Yes, thank you for that question. Our party strongly believes that everyone deserves to feel safe in their homes, on the street, and in their neighborhood. We need to invest in crime prevention programs that work, and youth support and mental health services, and community-based policing that builds trust, not fear. And we need to address the root cause of crime, such as poverty, addiction, and lack of opportunity. And we strongly support funding for violence prevention, a stronger focus on restorative justice, and cracking down on organized crime. Safety isn't just about policing, it's about supporting communities before crises happen. Thank you.
Question for Michael. So many Richmond residents face job insecurity and low wages, which impact their ability to afford necessities. Current income support programs do not fully address these financial hardships. What can be done to improve income security and job stability for Richmond's residents?
We'd like to increase minimum wages and give what we coin a guaranteed livable income, as well as match expenses to bring those down, away from speculation, as I said, to meet income levels, wherever that medium is, wherever when we increase wages and bring down expenses, wherever that golden spot is, that's our achievement right there. So in facing income insecurities, well, we need better jobs, for Canadians, by Canadians. And just recently I heard of foreign fishing companies coming in there, paying low wages, spilling water into the waters off the Vancouver Island, and then when the federal government or whatever entity imposes fishing restrictions, they sue the government because they want to take all the fish out. Well, we need sustainable, steady income for all Canadians, not for any foreign entities or anything like that. So building our self-resiliencies, increasing wages to a guaranteed livable income, and getting corporate greed out of our grocery stores and other suppliers for the daily necessities that we need. That's how we're going to take care of all that. Thank you.
So we got a lot of questions about healthcare, as you can imagine. So we'll start with Kiefer. So in BC, tens of thousands of people don't have a family doctor. And I think in Richmond, this number is maybe, the last number I heard a couple of years ago was around 40,000. The shortage of family doctors is serious and hasn't caught up with increasing population. So how can the federal government support provinces to provide a family doctor to every person who needs one?
Yeah, I think that with all the focus on Trump down south, there's a lot of anxiety right now, and there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of pain. But a lot of that pain is also, unfortunately, directed at his own citizens. And what we're seeing is a lot of very well-trained doctors, very well professionally trained folks in the States who are now looking at Canada as an option. So one of the things that we can do to help our healthcare system here is to fast-track things like credential recognition. We know that doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals that are trained in the States are qualified to work in our healthcare system in Canada. We know that there's a huge labor shortage in our healthcare system that's causing delays, that's causing ER shortages. So if we are able to fast-track things like credential recognition for folks in the States, for folks coming in from other places where we know that the credentials are legitimate and are up to snuff with our healthcare system here, that is a way that we can immediately address that shortage and make sure that we're providing the services we need to people here in Canada.
So for Wilson, so pharmacare and dental care programs are rolling out in Canada, and they are helping many seniors that live at or near the poverty line. If your party continues in government, will these programs continue?
Absolutely. And I think this is the work, not just the Liberal government, and I have to, really applaud the NDP coalition, because together, it's about the community that we serve. And we've been talking about, CDCP or pharmacare for a long time, but keep in mind, these programs come in stage. And for those who don't know, in the last few years as a minority government, we were able to put out so much of these social programs to support our community. And one of it is the Canada Dental Care Plan, which when I am at the door, I'm hearing from a lot of seniors, especially because they don't want to pocket out the money to go to a dental clinic. But the oral health is also part of health. And it's important for us to deliver these programs forward for those that is being missed and who don't have an insurance plan. And with the pharmacare, it's just a beginning where we provide contraceptive and diabetic medication, which help many families in our community because those medications are very expensive. And I think that moving forward is what should we work on next? And that's important for me to raise because it includes your consultation to let us as government know which area of focus that we should expand on with the pharmacare. And one thing I do want to point out, because we don't see any Conservative candidate here today, and from my understanding, Poilievre is going to cut these social programs because he knows that cutting tax would bring community better, but I disagree with that. So let's continue work together on bringing more social programs like these ones to support our community. And one thing I do note is, living in Richmond for so long, we have a senior poverty, over 20% senior poverty a decade ago, and we were able to lift that. And of course, there's more work to do. Thank you.
And the next question is for Stephen. So Richmond residents face challenges accessing mental health services, addiction support, and tailored services for its aging population. These services are critical for community well-being, but often lack sufficient resources. How can the federal government enhance its health and social services to meet the diverse needs of its population?
Yeah, so this is another healthcare question, and I just want to point out that I've gotten friends who have become doctors. They're working in New Zealand, they're working in the States, they're working in the UK, they're not working here. And the reason is very simple. Over across the border, they're getting paid 300, 400,000 USD. Over here, not so much, maybe half, and also taxed at a way higher rate. And the cost of living here is much higher. You know, if a house here costs something $1 million, over at the States, they can get it for maybe 1 million. So I think, in simple terms, I think we just need to pay our doctors more, give them a livable and competitive wage, and do something about the tax as well. And that will bring more qualified doctors back to Canada.
So the next question is for Parm. The government may be planning an expansion of medical assistance in dying to people whose sole condition is mental illness. So what is your party's platform on expanding MAID?
Well, thank you for the question. And you know, this is actually an extremely sensitive topic. Myself, Wilson, and other members of our caucus were involved in a lot of the dialogue and consultation with all members across all party lines. And at this time, that dialogue's been paused, and we need to revisit it because we want more consultation from the community. Now, if we look at the population that we have across this country, the largest demographic that has, you know, just left the workforce, and now not only them, but their children are leaving the workforce and are aging to a point where they are dealing with all sorts of different medical needs, whether it's Alzheimer's or other ailments that they've developed over the course of time. These conversations not only have to happen with their own families, but we don't need to have it where politicians are making this decision for people. So we need to increase amazing amount of dialogue on this because we have to get it right. We do know people are in pain at a later point in their life, and they need to be dealt with in a manner that is not only safe, but something that everyone can accept as something that you know, they want to move forward with, not only with their family, but you know, as a community, as a society. How are we going to help those that may be in pain and suffering in the later stages of their life? So the dialogue is continuing. I think we do need to go back to it. We will revisit it. It's not off the table entirely, but we need to have health professionals and everybody that's within families, communities across the country to really put their input in how they feel about this and how we make the decision, because it is a big one, and we need to make the right decision for people who have, quite frankly, built this nation, and they deserve to die with dignity, if that's how it is, or age with dignity. So that's what the plan is moving forward.
And the next question is for Martin. So there has been a lot of confusion and controversy about supervised consumption sites, which are federally regulated, versus overdose prevention sites, which are provincial jurisdiction. So what is your party's view on the use of either of these programs as a harm reduction strategy? And a follow-up question, are you in favor of a for-profit recovery model?
Yes, thank you for the question. I'm sure we all know here someone in the audience who lost a loved one to an overdose. But it's not easy to talk about. But it's something many families in Richmond Center and Marpole know all too well. It happened quietly, like it often does. There are no signs, but no system in place to catch them when they fell. The death was preventable, and that's what keeps me up at night sometimes to think about that. This isn't about politics, it's about saving lives. Safe consumption sites, when paired with mental health care, housing, treatment options, save lives. I have talked to paramedics and recovery workers in your own city who tell me they have seen people turn their lives around, but only when the system doesn't give up. At the same time, I understand the concerns of residents. We need thoughtful, well-supported, and community-informed harm reduction strategies. That means open dialogue, proper resourcing, and making sure these services are part of a continuum of care. We all want the same thing: safer streets, fewer funerals, and a city that wraps its arm around those who are struggling, not push them away. Thank you.
And the next question is for David. So people aged 65 and older are the fastest growing demographic in Canada, and it is expected that 1 in 4 Canadians will be 65 by the end of the 2030s. Significant investments are urgently needed to support the growing aging population. So the question is, what would be your party's priorities with regard to healthy aging, and suggestions, national long-term care, supports for aging at home, or some other supports for seniors?
The issue for seniors is the same as the issue for all Canadians. We need to have a very strong economy in order to be able to afford the social programs that will be able to support them. Something that we haven't talked about today, which I think needs to be talked about, and I'm just going to pivot for a moment, is the cost of living is very high, and that affects seniors, of course, as well. And the stories that I hear are heartbreaking, that seniors are having to choose between medications and food. And that's just something that we should not accept as a country. The reality of the situation is the cost of living is too high, inflation is too high, and that's all as a result of the Liberals and the NDPs who have been in power for the past several years with the NDP coalition and the Liberals before. And I'll just make this point to you. If you have issues with how things are currently, if you elect the Liberals and the NDP again with the same policies, they're going to bring it, you're going to have a repeat of what you already have. Things are not going to get better. You need dramatic changes in order to improve the situation for all of us. So for seniors, it's the same situation as for everybody else. Something we haven't talked about is the fact is, we talked about housing before. Housing affects seniors, I'll connect it that way, is the immigration levels. Nobody here has talked about that today. We have taken in nearly 5 million people over the past 5 years. That is the population of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, and PEI in 5 years. That's 5 provinces worth of people in 5 years. More than 40% of those people have come to Vancouver and Toronto. So you talk about the cost of living for seniors, housing for seniors, the PPC is the only party willing to say that we will put a moratorium on immigration, not because we don't want immigrants. I'm a child of immigrants myself. Immigration is wonderful, but because we need to build a surplus of housing, we need to hire those doctors and nurses. We are the only party proposing 2-tier healthcare, private-public mix, just like they have in European countries, which have the best healthcare systems on the planet. Look it up. The best healthcare systems on the planet all use 2-tier healthcare. Thank you.
I'm wondering if Parm, if you want to respond, given your government's record on these issues, such as immigration.
Just on the immigration issue, or there's a lot there?
If there were other issues as well.
On the immigration issue, I think we need to look at, with respect to what we've been through, and the issue of inflation, I know my friend over there keeps talking about how inflation, for some reason, I think is only impacting Canada in his mind, but if you look at the issues around inflation globally, it was a global impact. We had issues with supply chains, and we had to rapidly make decisions with everything from making sure businesses survive, not only survive, but continue to grow, and increase our supply chains at the same time. So making investments, making sure people still have their jobs, So, and we were able to, at the same time, bring down inflation. I want to talk quickly about the immigration issue. The federal government is in the demand business. When we have provinces that ask us, our labor market needs are this, and our universities say, these are the capacity of our schools that we need students in, we say, okay, we look at their data and we provide those labor market assessments across the country. And that helped us continue to keep our economy moving, and that is the issue. Do we need to control it? Yes, we'll do it in a controlled way based on the better data that we get from across the country from the other provinces. Thank you.
And rebuttals are 1 minute. I forgot to say, remind you that. Yes. Luckily, we have the bell. And a question for Michael. So the carbon tax rebate is ending, and with it, regular rebates to vulnerable Richmond residents such as working poor, seniors, families, and people with disabilities will also end. So if your party becomes government, what supports will be put in place for vulnerable populations to replace the carbon tax rebate?
How about getting rid of carbon? Yeah. Just right off the bat. Yeah. That isn't equivalent. I really felt the carbon rebate was too complicated. You know, charging a high tax, but some people get a rebate for and everything. And I think that is the biggest reason, its complexity that it is the biggest reason that contributed to its lack of popularity. What will we replace that with? How about cheaper green energy and lowering your bills and raising your living wage and so forth? There is no direct replacement for what was removed with the carbon tax other than removing carbon altogether and fortifying that with cheaper green energy, good paying jobs, and more services, public services to little people, which I am one of, trust me. I was raised by a single mother, and the Salvation Army, shoes from Walmart. When I say the little people, I'm talking about myself. I need a break too, and that's why I'm here. And so I'm not kidding about the carbon tax. The carbon tax needs to be kept at a corporate level because those are the biggest polluters. And the rest of us, maybe we can benefit from not paying the consumption tax like we were. So there was some math done, and the people who complained about the carbon tax were actually making more money, bottom line, on the rebates than they were paying out for the carbon tax, but then they got rid of it, so now they're actually paying more. Too complicated, too convoluted. So I'm offering you simplicity, cleaner, cheaper energy, and a better wage to combat losing that rebate. Thank you.
Thank you, and Dee was just saying the rest are, what did you say, popcorn questions?
You won't know the topic
Yes.
beforehand. It'll be, yeah, everything.
We have a few from here and there. So for Wilson, the next question. So the Canadian Disability Benefit of $200 per month is rolling out very soon, but tens of thousands of individuals with disabilities have not qualified and are barriered by an overly complicated application process. So what would you do to simplify the process and provide the Canadian disability benefit to everyone in Canada with a permanent disability?
That's a very good question, and I'm sure Dee, we discussed that in the past. And you know, there are a lot of people with disability in our community, and we should never forget about them. And having an inclusive community to allowing them having the opportunity, just like any one of us, is detrimental. And I think when we first had this disability benefit put forward, it has been in conversation for many years. And although I understand that $200 is not really a lot, but I am certain that we will be adjusting that amount on the upward end, because in the beginning, we were concerned about whether or not the provincial government will claw back this amount. Because when these money are paid towards people with disability, they might instead go beyond their bracket and lose other benefits. And in fact, they might also be paying tax on top. So we do have the assurance from the BC NDP government that they won't do that. And I think that's one of the important issue that we have to work on in the upcoming parliament to advocate more for people with disability and making sure they have enough to get through a good life. Thank you.
So the next question is for Kiefer. Since the last election, government supports have inched up while the cost of living has skyrocketed. Everyone is having a hard time making ends meet, but low-income individuals are particularly hit. So what is your position on universal basic income and earnings exemptions for individuals, families, single parents, people with disabilities, and seniors?
I'll start with the second part of that. Exemptions on folks who are struggling to make ends meet through different reasons, different barriers. That's absolutely a way that we can make more tax fairness. We can make sure that we are not increasing the burden on people who are already facing barriers to living in our community. I've already mentioned things like dental care. I've already mentioned things like the GST rebate to help immediately bring down the cost of items for people. I know our colleagues over on the green side have mentioned universal basic income. It's something that I think is not a bad idea. It's something that if we were to be able to bring in a citizens group to talk about this issue and to see how it would work along our communities, it is absolutely a way that we can raise up. It's a way that we can raise everybody, create a floor for everyone to make sure that no one is falling below the poverty line, and that they're covering the essential costs of life, like groceries, like diapers, like their heating and things like that. So it is something that I would absolutely be in support of exploring.
And the next question is for Stephen. So TransLink is facing a huge deficit and will cut buses if another funding source is not found. Although I think there was just some funding came up a while ago, maybe a few days ago, but still it struggles. Public transportation is worth every penny spent for the country and for the economy. However, the Canadian Transportation Agency has no mention of a public transit strategy that would work with provinces to fund accessible, affordable public transit. So what would your party do to increase federal operational funding for accessible, affordable public transit?
So public transit is pretty important. If you go around, you look at the buses, SkyTrain, we've actually seen a much higher utilization rate than 10, 20 years ago, and it's been steadily going up. So if we get rid of buses, then how are these people going to get to work? And especially there's a ton of congestion. So we definitely do need a working, well-funded transit system. Now, I don't know how much we can actually do about it at a federal level, but I think if I'm elected, I will learn more about this issue, report back to you guys, learn from you guys, and bring these issues up to the government.
And the next question is for Parm. The federal government recently made huge funding cuts to immigration and refugee settlement programs. This includes funding for people already living here in Canada. The cuts have devastated programs that Richmond nonprofits have provided for years, namely Richmond Family Place and Richmond Multicultural Community Services. Will your government reinstate federal settlement funding for immigrants and refugee families that are already living here in Canada?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I've had those conversations, I know, with the service providers here. The issue there is with the dial back of the amount of refugees and asylum seekers and the processing of them accepting having them stay here, that in a way I believe that it was maybe a decision made in advance of those numbers actually manifesting to go down. But I think that moving forward, it's on the basis of what the needs are. We'll focus on the funding towards that. And if you look at the level of decisions that have been made, not only to stop and protect the borders and the human trafficking, we've beefed up the BSA services and the resources and tools to combat some of the illegal border crossings. And most of the focus right now with the refugee claims is to make sure that those refugee claims are honest and real refugee claims, because we have commitments that are through the United Nations Convention Act. And those claims are the ones that we will continue to honor and continue to fund. But if there's refugee claims and people claiming humanitarian on a humanitarian needs basis that have no real track record on why they are here and what brought them here, and they're not here for a pathway to safety, they will not be funded. So I think that in order to ensure that Canadians are getting the best value for the money that they're putting up through their taxpayer dollars, we need to ensure through the United Nations partnerships agreements that we have, we honor those refugee claimants, but not people who are coming in through different means of human trafficking or other areas. Thank you.
And the next question is for Michael, and this came from the floor. So if elected as MP, will you commit to maintaining and expanding investments to school food programs? And if so, what steps will you take to improve the accessibility and quality of these programs?
That is actually outlined directly in our platform, healthy school lunches for all children. No, someone held up an NDP sign as they were exiting, right as I was speaking. The Green Party does want to supplement education and the nutrition of those who are learning. That's very important. You need glucose in your brain to keep thinking, right? So, yes, how are we going to, well, along with other social services that will be worked in, as I've explained how we're going to get the money and so forth, but directly, yes, we will support school lunches for all schools throughout, up north too, especially where they need it. The distribution to these places needs to be increased, as well as the fuel to cook these and so forth. Try to facilitate how they get their lunches and everything. That's going to be a challenge, but we're up for it. Hopefully we can integrate that with some of our other infrastructure changes. That's just it. Let's feed our kids. Thank you.
And the next question is also from the floor. It's for David. It's a little bit complex, but so when will the Government of Canada respect and comply with all human rights protection law by ending age discrimination? And this comes from a seniors advocate recommendation. By ending age discrimination and elder abuse, and also enable RSP tax deferral until end of life and stop non-voluntary RIF withdrawals immediately.
Yeah, that is a bit of a complex question. I'll do my best. Yeah, I make my money currently by investing. And again, using tax deferred programs like the RRSP and the TFSA is a fundamentally important investment strategy. And yes, it's true that when a senior reaches, I believe it's 65, 70 years of age, their RRSP does convert into a RIF, and they do have to do periodic withdrawals from it. And I can appreciate wanting to, keep the provisions of the RRSP in place. You know what? I'm not an economist. I don't know actually personally. I actually would think that might not be a bad idea, but I'd have to look into it more deeply. As for ageism and discrimination, the People's Party of Canada is a meritocratic party. We believe in meritocracy as opposed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We believe in equality, in everybody having equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. So when it comes to seniors, if a senior is older, but they still have all their faculties. They're still extremely competent. And just to put it out there, actually, because I want to be transparent with you guys, I want to be upfront. I actually like Donald Trump. I know that's not popular to say, but I like Donald Trump. People say that our party is Trump supporters. Let me be very clear, we do not want to be the 51st state. However, it doesn't work to alienate the leader of the most powerful nation in the world. We owe them thanks, for being our military backbone, right? So again, Donald Trump, he actually just passed his physical with flying colors. You can be the leader of the free world. Again, guys, look, we're talking about ageism, right? Ageism. You can look at that man and say, I don't like him, blah, 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 but he's the leader of the free world. So again, we don't believe in ageism, and we believe in meritocracy. And Donald Trump, love him or hate him, he fought through a lot of opposition to become the President of the United States. So the People's Party of Canada would oppose 100% ageism and say, look, you know what, if you're 75 years old, but you still have all your faculties and can do your job, then we support that 100%. Thank you.
And the next question is for Martin. So we're trying to organize here the questions from the floor, and so we don't have too much overlap. And again, so we've talked a lot about poverty and poverty reduction, but now facing tariffs and huge jumps in rent and so forth, people having to go to the food bank. I'm wondering, what poverty reduction policies would your party implement to ensure the government can effectively reduce stresses of daily living for Richmond families and individuals?
Thank you for the question. Yes. Richmond Center Marple families are working very hard, but it feels like everything getting more expensive, like housing, groceries, childcare, and even phone bills. We need both federal action to lower costs. That includes building truly affordable housing, removing the GST from essential items, like housing, essential items, capping grocery prices, and making childcare more affordable, where NDP, we're introducing the $10 childcare per day, so both parents could be in the workforce, and they could provide the basic necessities for their families. The NDP's plan includes target tax cuts for middle class, and price caps on essentials, and investment in public services, so families don't have to pay out of their pocket. It's time everyday people got a break, not just the wealthy few. Thank you.
And the next question is also from the floor. This is for Wilson, and it's a question on proportional representation, which was something that the Liberal government talked about early in their mandate when first elected. So our present electoral system is terribly unrepresentative. Would you personally support proportional representation if your party didn't?
That's a very good question. And I think coming from, I was born in Hong Kong and coming with my parents to Canada. We are a very inclusive community, and I have to say I'm very proud of that, because when I first came here, I still get discriminated. And how do we make sure that there's proportional representation in our community? Starts from us. And it's important for us to get this voice across to the federal government, to making sure that we are treated equally. The fabric of Canada is built on diversity, and that's why it's also very important for us to consider inclusivity when we are making decisions moving forward. So I welcome, feedbacks from the community that how we can strengthen this proportional equity in the government, and as well as in the community that we all live in. Thank you.
A rebuttal on his answer?
Yeah, or just a follow-up. I'm not sure how it works. My apologies. I looked at the rules.
I suppose we could do 1 minute, but stay on topic.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I appreciate Wilson's response. It was very diplomatic, and that's great. And diversity is wonderful. We celebrate that. But proportional representation is what Justin Trudeau promised when he ran for Prime Minister back in 2015 and did not deliver on it. Proportional representation is something that the People's Party of Canada wholeheartedly embraces. And let me say this, I'll just put a quick plug. It's a real shame that Maxime Bernier is on the Leaders' Debate and only the Green Party supported. Again, a little poll there. Proportional representation would allow for the Green Party and the PPC to have actual representation in Parliament. The PPC got 5% of the vote, 850,000 Canadians in the last election. We could have gotten 15 seats. The Green Party got 400,000 votes. They would have had 12 seats in Parliament. The Conservative Party got 34% of the vote. They would have had, I didn't do the calculation, but they would have had more seats than the Liberals. Liberals only got 33% of the vote. We actually should be under a Conservative minority government with the PPC actually helping them to run the country, not the NDP Liberal coalition. If we had proportional representation, we would actually have true representation of how Canada wants to vote. Thank you.
This was always my favorite discussion in political science classes. The next question is for Stephen. So, what's your opinion on the rising, and this is from the floor again, and it's actually has two questions, so, and a little bit not overlapping too much, but what's your opinion on the rising attacks and defunding of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion in the US? And how would you protect cultural diversity, equality, and history? So, and what is your stance on, it also asks what's your stance on reproductive rights? So if anyone else wants to answer that as well, they may.
Okay, what is reproductive rights?
Right to abortion.
Oh, right to, okay. So yeah, this is a very sensitive topic, and I think I'm gonna respect the decisions of the community, but I will share my personal opinions on DEI as well. So, with the States, I know firsthand a lot of people who are very qualified, but because they're Chinese or they're Vietnamese, they did not get in because they had a quota by race, and I think that's an extremely racist thing to do. When you're classifying people by race instead of their grades, I don't think that's good. So I support classifying people based on their grades for admission, based on their merit for jobs. And the second question of abortion, I think it's a woman's right to do so. But I think, okay, so this is what I've gotten from the community through reading your emails. So I think everybody agrees on abortion to some degree, or most of you, but it's more about the timeline. You know, at what stage is it not okay, right? Is it with a beating heart? Is it when there's already arms and legs? I mean, so I think this is more of a question not for me, but for you guys.
For the women. For the women.
I think we've had enough rebuttals at the moment. We're just going to move on. Sorry. Yeah. And we are going to do one last round. Give everybody just a minute to wrap up, and if there's any topic that you wanted to address at that point. I'm actually going to address this to Kiefer, even though it comes from the floor and it asks what the Conservative Party would do about this, but they're not here tonight. So, unfortunately. So, insurance claims for property damage or complete loss are increasing every year due to climate change. So, what would you do to address this? It says reverse this problem. I guess reverse and address this problem.
Yeah, it's funny that they're not here. I would right off the bat say that climate change is real. And as a coastal city, we are going to be affected by this on the near future. It's already raising people's insurance costs if you live in an area that is prone to flooding. Luckily in Richmond we have dikes, but just across the water in New Westminster, they've seen a lot of their insurance raised because of this issue. So this is going to continue to be a problem if we don't invest in climate resilient infrastructure, if we don't invest in our dikes, and also making sure that we are tackling things like climate change head on. We have removed the carbon tax on people, which is probably a good idea because that affects people who are actually not the most biggest contributors to climate change and pollution. But we should be increasing the climate tax on the biggest polluters themselves, those in industry that are actually causing devastating climate change in our community. So that's some way that we can actually address that. Also investing in clean jobs, like our green colleagues have mentioned, with the Green New Deal to make sure that the next generation of skilled laborers have good paying jobs to support our communities while investing in infrastructure that's going to keep us safe and superpower our economy. That's another way that we can really help tackle the climate crisis. Thank you.
And this next question is also from the floor and Parm. So it's asking about reunification of families. It says, will you stand up today to make sure the families of Palestinians from Gaza safely have their family members brought to Canada?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I know that right now, across the globe, there are over 120 different conflicts. I'll let everybody think about that right now. Canada has been and always has still remains and has always been a peacekeeping nation. I think we need to get back to that place. The issue with reunification of Palestinians, we have honored that. I actually supported a petition that was sent to my office to make sure that people who had family members here that were in danger, they found the pathway to peace. And that means pathway to Canada. So we have to look at each person on a case-by-case basis. It is not only important that we do the work from here, but we have people on the ground right now, all levels of government are anticipating that some solution across the world, everyone wants this bloodshed to end. That is a paramount thing for everybody right now. But the biggest thing right now is we have our teams on the ground. And right now, the issue is also at the borders of the nations that are surrounding what's happening in Gaza and in Israel. So we have to work with those surrounding nations also to ensure that those people can get across the border to a safe passageway and then get here. So it's an extremely difficult situation that's going on there, but we are trying to support as many family members that need pathway to safety with people that are here right now. So that work is being done. Thank you.
And the next question on the same topic from Michael. So if elected as MP, what actions will you take to uphold peace and international law in the Middle East and in Gaza?
Well, I want the war to stop. I want illegal invasions to stop. And as far as reunification goes, do they want to be reunified here or back in Palestine where their home is? Because they're getting flattened there, and that's the tragedy of it. So yeah, I would support the reunification of it. Then, where is the line? We all have to educate ourselves and decide together, where is the line between welcoming all of that would make Netanyahu really happy. You know, he said, we can send all the Palestinians somewhere else. And Donald Trump can open up casinos on the Mediterranean on Palestinian land. But the thing is, it is their land. The Green Party wants to recognize Palestine as a state, its own state. And the fact that it's getting destroyed now, it's like, okay, where are we going to reunify these broken families? Here or there where they want to belong? I hope they would want to belong in their hometown. Of course, they're welcome to come here as asylum seekers and refugees. That is the law, and that is the Canadian way. But really, I want the war to stop. So yes, I support it. I made a pledge with Palestine. I am pro-Israel, but this illegal invasion and I believe the settlements on Palestinian land is nothing but a land grab, an illegal one at that. I would support reunification. I also support Palestine. I do support Israel, but not in this warlike state that they're currently in. Thank you.
Thanks. This is from the floor. It's actually, I'm going to pivot it to David, even though it's addressed to someone else. It's been a tradition, MPs give themselves pay raises every year, even during the pandemic. And this year's salary increase is between $7,900 and $15,800, which is a 3.9% increase. So, with many taxpayers struggling to make ends meet, what are your thoughts on pay raises for MPs?
Awesome. So, again, the PPC is all about meritocracy. We believe that, if you do the work, you should get a pay raise. The question is, have the Liberals and the NDP done the work, and do you feel that you're better off than you were? The way that you evaluate how well a government is doing with the age-old question, are you better off than you were when they took office? Are you better off than you were 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago? The answer is no. The price for the average GDP per capita in Canada is actually lower than it was when Justin Trudeau took office. So when you adjust for inflation, we are effectively poorer than we were 10 years ago. So rewarding MPs who have made your lives substantially worse is ludicrous. They should take pay cuts. That's what the MPs should do right now. I'm sorry, Wilson, I don't mean to be rude, but pay cuts for people who aren't actually making your lives genuinely better. That's what you should be demanding. And again, I'm just going to plug My Tax Money Canada. It will be a smartphone app that all Canadians will be able to put onto their phones and see clearly how the government is wasting your money. So when you have a conversation with your MP, you would be able to say, I saw on the app that you guys just gave yourselves another raise. I actually am having a hard time, making ends meet. Why are you paying yourselves more for making my lives worse? So again, the PPC believes in results, right? So if you're going to get a raise, you have to demonstrate clearly that you are producing results for it. And just to go to the issue of Ukraine, because it was just brought up, the PPC deeply poses...
Can we stick to the topic?
Sorry. Again, do you want to reward Justin Trudeau for telling Zelensky that, hey, anything that you need, the Canadian taxpayers will give you, $20 billion. Again, guys, remember, you're their boss. They work for you. You know what? They are your contractor. You need to hold them accountable. And people who are making a house that's falling apart don't deserve a raise. Thank you.
Michael, did you have a rebuttal? Yes, please. Okay, go ahead. 1 minute.
I just want to quickly say that the last 10 years are not completely blameable. In fact, only a fraction can be blamed on the government. We had a global pandemic that was not responded to well by the people, okay? And they took the $2,000 that per month that the Liberal government actually was gracious to give us. But they didn't adhere to staying home. All you had to do was stay home for 2 weeks. There was also a global material shortage. There was also a blockage of the Red Sea, a major international shipping port. This drove the cost up of everything. So I disagree. We cannot blame one government for all the problems in the world, okay? We need to unify now. And that includes with the government we have now. Although I want to get elected and change it.
Stephen, you can have 1 minute. We haven't had many rebuttals, so go ahead, 1 minute.
Okay, sorry. I think this is a very important issue, so I'd like to address it. I think we should be paying our MPs and our members of government way more than we are paying them now. And this is the same thing that we're seeing with doctors. We're not getting the best doctors because we're paying them very little. So if they're good enough, they can always go somewhere else. It's the same thing with the people that run our country. So if we are not paying them enough, we are incentivizing corruption. If we pay them enough, they don't need to consider that.
Thank you. So, last question, and then we'll allow each of you to have a short wrap-up as we end the evening. And so this is to Martin. And we have tried our best with a list here to get everybody to answer the same number of questions, so we hope we haven't missed anyone, but
No, we did well. You did well.
We have a grid here. So, Martin, immigration in the past decade, and this is from the floor again, has been the only way of maintaining population growth due to negative natural population growth in Canada. So how would your party deal with immigration planning, especially in light of more negative public views of immigration?
Thank you for the question. NDP, we strongly believe that we should have a pro-immigration policy where myself, I'm an immigrant. I came to Canada when I was younger. I think immigrant brings a lot of knowledge, abilities, and skills to this society. We work very hard. I came from a working class background with nothing. I worked my way up in the city of Richmond and here lifeguard, supervisor, serving the people in Richmond. I think there should be equal opportunities given to other people entering Canada in the future, where Canada is a land of opportunity as long as you believe you're working hard. And the NDP, we're very pro-immigration, and we should expedite visas process so people can reunite with their families overseas. Thank you.
Thanks. So we're going to give each of you 1 minute to wrap up. So let's start with David, and we'll move down the table again. So David, go ahead. 1 minute.
Thank you, everybody. I hope that I haven't been too much of a maverick and a dynamo in this meeting, but that's what the People's Party of Canada stands for. We are the party that is willing to say what the other parties won't say, and we're the party that would do what the other parties refuse to do. Again, the dream of balancing the budget in 1 year is possible. Again, we can cut foreign aid, we can cut corporate subsidies, right? We can cut the transfer payments from wealthy provinces like Alberta to provinces like PII or Quebec that refuse to explore their natural resources. We are the party that believes in meritocracy. We want an end to DEI, and we want an end to foreign wars. Instead of supplying money for people to kill each other, we would say, you know what, we're going to supply the oil and gas that Russia is currently selling Europe. So Russia's providing oil and gas to Europe, and they're using it to kill Ukrainians. To say, nope, we've got that oil and gas, Europe, we'll take care of you. And then to Russia, we would say, we are going to not get involved, we're peacekeepers, but we believe that Ukraine should not be part of NATO. We believe no missiles on the ground. So the PPC, we do things differently. If you want something different, you know who to vote for. Thank you so much for your time, everybody.
Thank you for the question. I'd say my last point I want to express here, it's, yes, if I'm elected as member of parliament, I've been knocking a lot of doors in Richmond and Marple, and I hear a lot of stories. People cannot afford a rent. It's hard to keep family doctor, and groceries are too expensive, and transit isn't reliable enough. So if I'm elected into office, I will push for affordable housing, co-ops, support housing, and public investment. So make sure everybody could get into the market and have a roof over their heads, and improve access to healthcare. So we can treat more doctors, mental health care, and dental coverage. So everybody doesn't have to worry about paying for their medical bills or for their groceries. And also make life more affordable, such as scrap the GST on essentials, boost caregiver and renter support, and fix the transit gaps. As you can see, not many people here drive, so more frequent, reliable services for students, workers, and seniors. Thank you.
I just want to say, don't forget the Green Party, but in all of its totality. I mean, we stand for the environment, of course, and I'll get to that in a moment, but we also have plans to build reserves of ammunition for our defense of this beautiful country and increase defense spending up to NATO levels and beyond if needed. And we also have provisions to lower taxes, eliminate taxes for people making under 40,000, lower them for everybody under making 100,000. So you want a tax break? We've got it for you. We published a 124-page document. I wish I could read it all, but I've got only seconds left. But please, one thing, all of these topics are not going to matter much if our houses catch fire. Has anybody been to Lytton, Jasper, Alberta, Los Angeles, California? Significant portions of these have burned, and that is a direct relation to our poor emissions and pollution. And thank you very much.
Really thank you for taking the time coming out tonight because these are important dialogues. And I believe that these aren't dialogue only for the election, but it should be happening throughout the years. And my office is very committed, and myself is very committed from hearing every one of you, including those who might not believe in our party lines. And I'm here to serve every single one of you. And I think it's important to maintain that dialogue because a lot of time we might not agree on everything, but we gotta maintain that communication dialogue to make sure that your voice is being heard in Ottawa. And I think tonight we haven't heard much about the threat that we're getting from the US, but I think under the Mark Carney government, we have strong support on rebuilding, protecting our economy and strengthen our economy so that I understand by Canada Day, we are committed in removing all interprovincial trade barriers so that we can actually treat Canada as one, united, and we'll fight for this, making Canada strong, and hoping to have all your feedback shared with me so I can continue to serve this community that I live in. Thank you very much.
I just, again, want to echo Wilson's comments. Thank you all so much for coming out on a weekday night and engaging in politics. It's wild, but thank you, it matters. And thank you to all the other candidates who showed up tonight, because it's important that your elected reps show up. I think this election is really going to come down to affordability and the things that we feel every day, housing, grocery costs. This is not a time to be cutting services. This is a time to be investing in people. And the only way we can do that is by lowering taxes on the middle and working class and raising it on those in the upper, the billionaires and the people making the most. Now, David, I think it's safe to say that we disagree on a lot of things, but one thing you said that's really important is that those who make the most money know how to skirt around taxes, which is why we need to be doing things like closing tax loopholes and tax havens, because if we do that, we can actually reinvest billions of dollars into our economy, into the services that we rely on, without actually having to raise the taxes on a lot of people. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming out.
Once again, I'll echo your statement and everyone's here. Thank you for joining us today and showing up. All I can say really is it's been a huge honor to be able to serve, the city that I was raised in over the last 4 years. And I dedicated myself as a worker. I don't believe that I'm like some MP. I look at these things as solutions that we need to bring forward, ideas that we need to bring forward, and strategies to help our community. I focus on local investments to create jobs, everything from innovation, research, development, and our supply chain corridors. I was able to work together with all levels of government and including members of the community and service providers and supports. So ultimately, I want to continue on that mission to make sure that we can find government operational savings to reduce the burden on our Canadian workforce and help them get ahead. So that is a big focus for me, and also to make sure that we can continue with a healthy, active living lifestyle here that everyone can enjoy. So thank you very much for having me today.
So when you cast your votes, I just want to point out that there is a distinction between your member of parliament, all of us here, and the party. So I think when you vote, it's good to not just look at the party, but look at the person sitting here that's actually going to be representing you, because they will be the ones who might potentially be standing up for your voice against other parties, but more importantly, sometimes standing up for your voice against their own party.
Thank you, and we're we're gonna wrap it up for tonight. I really want to thank the organizers, Richmond Center for Disability, with their incredible technology. I've done events with them for a while and I'm so impressed. Richmond Poverty Reduction Coalition, of course, and Dee's been coordinating with me over there at the table with the questions, and then the Jewish Seniors Alliance. And special shout out to Jethro, who kept us on time and used the bell, because I would have liked these guys to talk a lot longer if that bell hadn't gone off. So, and there's also a lot of volunteers from these organizations and others who have been here tonight. I also want to thank you, the audience, for being, and you were perfectly behaved, so I don't know why I told you earlier to behave. And thank you also for the candidates for coming out and also for putting your name forward. I know that politics isn't, like, running for office is not an easy job, and it's a lot of walking and knocking and doing work. So all of you, I commend you for putting your names forward. So thank you. Good night.